Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. So many of you are willing to send me questions in my inbox that what I've done is I've categorized several. And so I've got a couple that I'm planning to do. So if you've asked a question and the reading hasn't come out yet, just know I haven't ignored you. It's probably just a couple days off yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do one today about why my person is choosing other situations and other people over me. And this is a question that has come out a couple of times, and it's come out a couple of times recently. So we're going to go ahead and get into that one today. It's a general reading, and it's a general reading for the collective. And of course, it's not going to resonate with everybody, but as I always say, it shouldn't. If you are a part of this group, a part of this collective, and you would like to, maybe go back and get a couple of other messages, might be useful for you, or of course, feel free to subscribe. I've been putting out videos pretty much daily for a little while now. And so it's interesting. I can almost still not keep up with the question. So we're going to go ahead and jump in with why your person is choosing other situations, other people over you, especially because it's such a departure from what was. Let's take a look at the energetic backdrop between the two of you. We'll just kind of see what kind of energy is sticking out for you today, because in a lot of cases there's been a little bit of an up and down in the energy. There's an excitement, and then there's it's this feast or famine sort of feeling. Okay, so there's a lot of passion in the energy today, but I don't necessarily get the chance, or I don't necessarily get the sense that this passion necessarily has anywhere to go. Let's look a little bit farther into that. So we've got the Hierophant coming up. There's some guidance needed. This is something that's been coming out with the Hierophant in some of the recent readings. It's been more around that spiritual guidance. It can be around different things. Sometimes it's religious, sometimes it's not. In this case, it's not specifically religious, although the guidance could be. The King of Wands is also coming out, and it's talking a little bit about trying to keep a good balance of the passion energy. So you've got the Queen and King of Wands that are here together, okay? They're from different decks, but the energy still riffs off of each other. But the thing that's happening here, especially in light of this Hierophant and this guidance, is that the King of Wands, there's a need to keep the desire balanced and to make sure that everything is kind of pointing in the right direction, because there's so much energy going on here. It can be difficult to determine when it's best to communicate, what it's best to communicate. And this is in the energy between the two of you. We have the Page of Cups here suggesting that there would be, if you haven't had communication recently, there's certainly been a lot of consideration, more so maybe than there has been usually. So there's still that sense of brokenheartedness, and I want to get to this in just a second, because this is the reason why there's been so much of this energy out there, or at least it's one of the reasons. It's part of the story. So there's this desire to communicate, and in some cases, really just maybe I could apologize and we could begin again, or we could have a conversation that brings us back to reconciliation. Lot of different thoughts going through people's heads, and again, this is both of you, this is in both of your energy, but it's not that stable energy that you want it to be. Instead, it's with the King of Wands. When that King of Wands gets unstable, you start to see things like arrogance. In some cases, you start to see some narcissistic trends come out. A sense of controlling, and sometimes it's emotionally controlling, and then you get somebody and then you don't know what to do with them. And that's kind of what may have happened with your person. It's kind of an interesting thing that's been coming up here lately. The concept of narcissism has been coming up in a couple of these readings, as well as some of the personal readings. But this feeling of control, and this feeling of the brokenheartedness and the sadness that goes beyond just what's happened within this relationship, is very much related to this desire to communicate. So the desire to communicate is going to illustrate both for you and for your person the pieces where you need to go in and continue doing some of your searching. The Hermit has been coming out for us in reverse here recently, and one of the reasons that it does that, um, and that's it. One of the reasons that it does that for us here recently is because the Hermit is about going into your thinking cave. You go and you find some wisdom, and it's not always everything that you're ever going to need, but it helps you to deal with the situation. In this case, with the Hermit in reverse, this is a person who has come out of their Hermit cave, out of their thinking cave, but they haven't necessarily found all of the wisdom that they really needed to get through the situation successfully. So they're going to find that there's a cycle. It'll be asked of them again. And this may be true of both of you. So both of you have, as we've seen in the readings, lessons to learn. Um, and this is just saying that there's still work to be done on those lessons. Let's see what else. We've got the Ace of Wands. This is standing in the way of, in some cases, we've been looking for that place that we were going to put some additional energy. So you guys have been getting this, and a lot of times it comes in the Ace of Wands in the upright, but you guys have been getting this advice to look for the thing that's going to ignite your soul, because not only is it going to be a lot of fun, but it's also something that helps to balance your energy a little bit and to redirect it a little bit from what you've been spending on your person. But we also know some other things about it. We know that it's probably something that you've always kind of wanted to do. It's right in front of you. It's something that, for whatever reason, you haven't been jumping into, and you may be standing in your own way. We heard for a while that you may be standing in your own way, but that's not really enough for me. So I'm glad to see that we're learning a little bit more about it. So now I've been seeing that Ace of Wands come out when I see where it is that people are standing in their own way. And so I think what's happening here is, and I'm going to put it next to this Hermit card, because it's about, if you come out of the thinking cave but you haven't found all the wisdom, and it's not enough to quite unlock the achievement of moving into this new space. This new space will enable the communication between you and your person to be better. So there may be an earlier attempt at communication going on, but maybe it's not going as well as what we would hope. And we saw that there might be communication before people were ready. So we've got the Ten of Cups in reverse and the Empress in reverse. So as I was talking about things happening when a person isn't ready, this is kind of the energy that's coming off the Empress card. Sometimes it's a sense of unpreparedness, or not being ready for the lessons that are happening for you right now. Not necessarily that, I can't stress enough how this feels like it's different from most situations, and how in most situations, if you were confronted with the same set of circumstances, you would feel differently, respond differently. Like, this person has come in as something that was too good to be true. And there's been almost a sense of static in trying to figure out how to handle it, how to handle the energy as it's been coming in, what to do about the person. And this feeling of not being ready is very much shared by both of you, but it's heavier on your person's side. We've seen this lesson with the Ten of Cups and the discernment piece about, when you see something that's too good to be true, what do you do? When you get up close enough to it to see kind of what's happening with it, what exactly do you do from there? And it's very much going to be based on what it is that you find when you get up closer. But feeling like you've come at it at a disadvantage, which is kind of how your person feels. So they were in the middle of something when the two of you really started to hit it off, when the gaze happened. Some of you, there's this moment where you looked into each other's eyes, and there was a moment, and you know when it was, and they know when it was, and things weren't the same from that moment forward. Um, they didn't feel like they were ready when things started, and they really don't feel like they've caught up. So that is really heavy in the energy right now as far as what's sticking out. And so that it's going to be sticking out emotionally. It's going to be in the energy that's kind of impacting the two of you today. So there's this sense of, not having figured out everything that you need in order to unlock the ability to have a productive conversation together. There's still something that has to happen there. So let's get into the question that brought us out here today, which is why they're choosing other people and other situations over you, because that is not what was happening. What was happening was they were choosing you in some way, in some cases going out of their way to choose you, but all of a sudden things shifted and changed. And in some cases, it was remarkably sudden. Okay, so we have the Three of Wands that has come out sideways. This is the most inconclusive way to be inconclusive. So the Three of Wands it's kind of a card of having set things in motion. And so they felt like maybe they were way over invested emotionally. Okay, they felt like they were way over invested emotionally, and then kind of talked themselves into thinking that maybe it wasn't, maybe they hadn't invested so much that you would notice it if they just kind of ducked out, or it's that equivalent. It's not, some of you were in relationships and they know darn well that you were invested. It's not, but it's that same sort of energy to it. Well, maybe they just won't notice if I duck out the back door and totally disappear after having been here I mean, it's got that sort of energy to it. It's a ghosting out sort of um it's like a little kid covering their eyes playing hide and seek. I don't know how else to describe it. So we've got a couple of cards that wanted to come out here. This Five of Cups especially wanted to come out. So this is a result of them having opened their eyes. So we're going to take all three of these cards, but I want to talk about them kind of together because I felt like they wanted to be seen together and talked about together. There's a whole conundrum here. So they opened up and saw more about you than they would have under normal circumstances. And it's because they were going through something already when the two of you came together. They were working through a piece of healing that was being particularly difficult and that they hadn't quite mastered. And so basically, when you came upon them, they were really ripe for the lesson that you were teaching. And this was about vulnerability. This was about them being able to talk and have meaningful, good conversations, and it caused them to kind of, I don't know. It's like they feel like they overshared, and then they feel like they overfelt the situation. So usually, the cool thing about the Five of Cups, okay, so the Five of Cups has this person that's going to be focusing. A lot of times, it's not always the same, but a lot of times you see this person who's focusing on some cups that are knocked over and the liquid is coming out, and that's the emotion that can no longer be held there. And it's a very sad, wistful, regretful, sometimes shameful sort of feeling. But there are these other cups off to the side that seem to be full of hope, full of the capability of transformation. And this person's only focused on the negative cups, and so are the sad ones, the ones that are falling over. So in the reverse, a lot of times what's great about this card is this person has decided to take a step back and look at the big picture. Not only are they going to be able to focus on the things that are not going well, but they're going to be able to focus on the things that are. And so that was a bit too overwhelming for your person. So this vulnerability was a little bit much. It was unexpected. They didn't feel like they were ready for it. They didn't have that lesson of discernment under their belts. And then they ended up with this feeling of, I kind of can't decide. It's the very, should I stay in this situation or should I disappear? And so they wavered maybe more than what you saw. There is a depression sort of feeling that comes in here. So some of them are actually fighting a depression or feelings of depression. That's the second time now in this reading that something that's a psychological term has come up. And it's like I have to say it in the most colloquial of ways because we can't say this person's a narcissist because narcissistic tendencies don't even make a person a narcissist. And we can't say a person is depressed because they feel depression either. So those are things that have definitions. But what we're saying, or what I'm saying, is that those are kind of the feelings that are coming through as I'm reading it. And it's really interesting because it's like as I'm thinking it, I'm saying, should I really use that word? And then the answer comes back, yeah, you have to use that word. It's the right word for the job. So there is fear your person has felt because that has led to this. The magician in the upright has led to the sun in reverse. The magician is this ability to manifest, and it's the realization that something really big was in your person's hands, and this scared them pretty significantly, I would say. Scared them pretty significantly and caused them to, with the sun in reverse, it's about having missed an opportunity. So they kind of feel like, and I've had this concept of a clean slate now come up a couple of times. This is about not having a clean slate. So it's about them reaching out to other people or other situations because they don't feel like they have as clean of a slate. When they looked into the situation, this feels like almost a miniature judgment card. It was like they looked into the situation and it was too much for them. It's too much for them to handle. And that's really when they started to waver and start being inconsistent with you. So if you notice that things were starting to die off communication wise, this is what was happening. They were realizing, wait, how invested am I and how much can I just sort of back away from this? And they've miscalculated and ended up missing an opportunity, but it all came because of this magician card in the upright where they realized they could actually be successful with something and it scared them. And that was something that they were maybe not, again, feeling like they were prepared for. So they feel like you were, though. Okay, so here's the Judgment card in reverse, and we have the Three of Wands in reverse again. The Strength card is an honorable mention that I will actually talk about first. So the Strength card in reverse, as we say, the Strength card doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's always something, it's in relation to the fear in the situation, okay? Because if there is fear, then it is operating against that strength. And when you see the Strength card in the reverse, you see the fear winning out. And so that is the bottom line, but it's kind of a vague answer. So when we go in and we look a little bit more deeply, we see they wish they had that clean slate that they used to have with you, and they remember. We've seen this in multiple readings where they wish they could turn back time. They wish they could go back, and recent readings where they wish they could go back to a time before things became difficult or before things got weird. I remember one of that might have been a personal reading. I was instructed specifically to use the term got weird, like before things got weird. And I thought, okay, I went with it. But they feel like you're fine with that. With this Nine of Pentacles, they're really, one of the things that they feel is we see that inferiority feeling coming out again and still. Um, this is that Judgment card, the real major arcana Judgment card to complement this Five of Cups, which feels like a minor arcana Judgment card, both in the reverse. It's about them looking into the face of it and feeling that they do not pass judgment. Then we have the Three of Wands in the reverse, which is coming out to say that it's ultimately about how invested they feel like they've been and how much they feel like they've set things into motion. We've also seen in recent readings, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's them, but there's this sense of they don't realize that they've got something set into motion already. Over here, we see that they're kind of trying to talk themselves out of it so they don't have to feel responsible for this pain over here that they are most definitely aware of. They're aware of it on their side, though. They don't quite know, and we see that here, but they don't quite know exactly how it impacts you. They don't exactly understand. And so they'll even read your messages if you're sending messages, if you have had communications, if you're one of the group, if you're one of the people within the group who has. They're even reading your messages differently from kind of the way that they're seeing them through a different filter. Um, so what can you be doing about that? Let's see what you can be doing about this. And we are going to go into the extended. We'll look more deeply into this and just kind of understand a little bit more. This all just feels like that same awkwardness that we have often had come out. I'd like to get a little bit more deeply into this, possibly see a little bit more in their emotions, because at this point, mostly what I see is them pushing away from an emotional standpoint. So I want to look in a little bit deeper for you and kind of see what's happening there. But let's look into your lesson first. Okay. So this is what you can be focusing on in the near term, what you can be doing about it. Okay, look for the thing that's really not right. So this is the Justice card. It's in reverse, and it has that immediately, it has that feeling to it that something isn't right and that you may be focusing on something that isn't the right thing. So if you're thinking it is, um, I don't know what issue you might be thinking is going on there with them. It may turn out to be something very different. Same with yourself. If you're feeling like, hey, I've been told in the past that I have, I don't know, PTSD, and that's part of what's causing this. It may be a smaller part of it than you think, and there may be a greater part that has to do with, I don't know, being a narcissist supply, for example. And that's just using the narcissist example because it came up earlier in the reading. And because it keeps coming up, which means it's present out here in the collective. It means there are some folks who are at least dealing with somebody who has narcissistic tendencies, but we'll take a look as time goes on, and we'll see if that starts to come into the readings more, if it starts to go away, or if it's just a strange fluke that it's come up a few times. But that's the beauty of doing readings often, is that we're able to watch it kind of adjust in a fluid fashion. So there are things that aren't right, and you're to look at them, but you're not just to look at them, you're to try and dig to the root. So when you feel discomfort, um, this is about this is about getting in there and figuring out really what it is that's driving that discomfort down at the root. Because this is an opportunity for healing for you. There's been a lot of opportunity with the full moon energy that we've had, and honestly, the full moon energy has brought up a lot of things that make us need to heal, make us reopen some things that we thought maybe we had already been healed from within this collective. And you get in there and you find out that there's maybe still a little bit more to learn. That's really how this Justice card feels too. It doesn't necessarily feel like, oh, it's this huge tumultuous terrible thing that needs to change. It's more that you dig in and you say, okay, it does seem like you've already learned this lesson, but what's missing? What's the part that's missing? And then the Four of Swords talks about really taking the time to heal it, which may involve going back into that hermit cave if you are one of the people. So this is energy that's shared with you and your person, but not everybody's in the same place. Some people have had more luck in their thinking cave than others, and this is a place for you to go back and or it's a time for you to go back and do some additional healing there. So you've got the Queen of Swords, and this has that sort of radical acceptance kind of feel to it. It's really a sense of not rejecting things quickly. The Queen of Swords can make rash decisions to reject things relatively quickly, but you don't want to do that. You want to go ahead and pay attention and listen and keep considering things, even if it is very difficult to do so. Look for places where you may be trying to control outcomes and rush things, places where you would not be able to look yourself in the eye or in the mirror after you do it, or you don't feel good about yourself after you do it. And play it out in your head and think about how you're going to feel in the future if you make a move, if you're trying to evaluate a move. And that's part of how you wouldn't make a rash decision, and also part of how you would slow things down enough that you'd be able to do a little bit of healing in there. Ideally, what you're seeking is this balance, this Justice card and the Temperance card. We've been seeing a lot of those lately. Both of them talking about a need for balance and seeking balance, especially in light of this situation. This is something that's caused both of you and your person, to really evaluate what it is that you want and how to go about even getting that. It's not always something that's super obvious. Um, and there may just, it can take a little while to get there. We've got a need for a new perspective. A new perspective needs to be granted or found. And this is within you, and it's in the near term. So we've seen some things happening with you in the near term. Lots of opportunities to start maybe using what you've learned, different challenges that you get. And you only get these challenges when you're ready for them. But boy, sometimes it just feels like when it's coming in, there's a whole bunch of it. There's a whole bunch of it. It's all or nothing. So the High Priestess is coming out for you also, and this one is really about it's about that connection with your intuition and being real with yourself. We kind of keep seeing that throughout here, and it plugs in nicely with the healing, with going to the root, checking in with your intuition and your higher self, seeing how things feel, which kind of matches with what we were talking about with the discernment and trying not to do harsh, controlling things that will end the pain faster, not cutting a spiritual cord or not having a harsh conversation with somebody that you end up cooling down from. And that's not necessarily your person, but this is just in general. Look for things like that in yourself. The things that you're looking for are going to help you with your person, but they're not going to necessarily be associated with your person. So you have a very strong bond with your person and a significant spiritual investment with them. This is not something to be taken lightly, but it's also something that affords you an awful lot of opportunity. You have choices that you're able to be exposed to because of this situation. Some of the choices will not be easy, and you can easily be distracted by the investment between the two of you. That's represented here with the Seven of Pentacles. So we had the Lover's card to represent your bond, and the Seven of Pentacles to represent the investment in that bond. And so this is a beautiful thing, but it needs to function as strength for you instead of taking your strength away or sapping away your energy, taking too much of your energy, being given too much of your energy. And it's really your power that is that's going to benefit from you being able to take back your energy and bring it into yourself to redirect to the thing that both of you are looking to find. We've seen now in the readings that it's not just you that needs to find this new passion, it's also going to be your person to a certain degree. You're both standing in your own way in a way, but like we saw, it's really more around lessons that haven't been learned yet, or lessons that haven't been learned all the way. That's what comes in kind of in the rest of this. So you see some of these conversations that are happening and they're not going very fluidly, or feels like it's too soon. Some people aren't getting responses at all. Some people are getting very terse responses. And it's all about personal power, but there's a need for both of you to pull your personal power back into yourselves and come up with a little bit more of that healthy balance that we see you striving for here. That's going to help you greatly as you're moving forward, and it'll make it far more possible for the two of you to come together in a reconciliation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this one here, and we'll go into the extended. We're going to dig a little bit more deeply into this piece around why they're choosing others, because I can feel the shame in there. I can feel them talking themselves out of it and becoming very inconsistent. I feel all those things in there, but let's look a little bit deeper into the why and maybe some of the emotions around that. So thank you so much for being here with me. If this was your story, you may want to subscribe. You may want to look at some other messages that have come through, because a lot of these are incredibly connected readings. So I'll either see you in the Vimeo linked down below in the extended reading, or I will see you at another reading in the future.